So guys, today I'm going to show you a method of getting rid of mosquitoes off your property that I've seen nowhere on YouTube, nowhere on the internet. This is an idea that came to me about 2 years ago and I implemented it. It is so inexpensive to put together, and also it only takes pennies to operate this every day. So let's head into the potting shed and I'll show you exactly how to put it together. You're going to be amazed at how effective this is. You're going to see your mosquito populations drop to zero. So guys, it really is simple to put it together. I would say it would take the average person 10 to 15 minutes to assemble it, but once you understand the concept, it is really that simple. This little device right here costs about $20, and it has nothing to do with mosquitoes. It has to do with a particular pet you might have in your home. But you can buy these, there's different brands, I'll put a link in the description, but there's a lot of different variations on this exact item right here. But this is what makes the system work perfectly, and it also is what makes it similar to the mosquito magnet system, because it keeps a certain thing happening at least every other day that's going to draw the mosquitoes in. But you don't necessarily need this, but because I'm going to show you 3 different variations of this exact system that's going to make mosquito populations drop to zero around your property. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install some of these straps right here. These are basically PVC straps. You can see it's kind of shaped in an arch like that, and we're going to use the shortest screws possible because we are going to be attaching this to the side of the bucket, so we don't want the screws sticking out too far. So let's see if I can get this in there without too much difficulty. Okay, that's one. And there are sticking out a little bit, so there is a small problem there. If there's kids around, you want to make sure that they're not playing around the bucket, but it's not a problem if you don't have kids or pets. Just keep them away from it. They don't need to be around anyways, because this is what's going to attract our mosquitoes right to the bucket, is this system we're putting together. Now, the reason I'm doing this is perfectly obvious in just a second. So I'm going to put 3 more, and I'm going to put it directly across from each other, and it was a total of 4. Now this is an optional way to do it. I'm just trying to make it as nice as possible. So I only have to do this once and it'll last forever. So I just want to do it the best way possible, but you're not required to do it exactly the same way I'm doing it. I'm just doing it the way I want to do it. So this is 1/2-inch PVC, and we're going to put 1 piece in each end, and I need to cut 4 pieces. They're going to be all the same size, and we want it to be about 6 to 8 inches above the bucket. So I'll cut this one, and I'll explain in 1 second while we're doing this. Okay, that's the first piece, and then I'm going to match it up with pieces 2, 3, and 4 just to make sure we have exactly the same height. Okay, we'll put that in the second hole. We want it to have a pretty tight fit. Okay, go back to our original piece. Just make sure we're cutting it at just the right length there. All right, grab the other piece I have handy, and I'm going to cut that last one right there at just the right length again. All right, so we have 4 pieces of PVC, all within just a few millimeters or fractions of an inch of being exactly the same height. And the reason we're doing this is we have to protect the system from rain. A little bit of rain blowing in is fine, but massive amounts of rain coming from the top, we don't need that. So let's go on to the next step. I'm going to get that out of the way, and I'll show you exactly how to protect the system from rain. Now, the device I showed you earlier is waterproof, but we're trying to protect the way in which we're doing this. So let's go on to the next step. Now we're going to install this on the top, and what we're doing here is we're creating a rain top for it, or protection. So you can either do it like that or flip it where it fits a little bit better, a little bit of a tight fit there, push them in like that. But what I'm doing is I'm preventing rain from just completely saturating the system, because we want the mixture we have in here to remain consistent. So again, you can do it either way. What I would recommend is using some of these 4-inch screws so you can lift the top off, but it would be a little bit more protected from the wind. So let's put 4 of these screws in. Now, as you can see, when you have 4 in there, that's going to take a little bit stronger wind, maybe even a storm to come through, that's going to keep it locked in place. So when we pull this over to one side, it's really a tight fit. So I'm going to put that in there first, and then I'll show you exactly how tight it actually is. All right, so I'm going to pull our PVC in place. And so it's really a tight fit there. It's actually pulling the PVC towards, and it makes the lid a lot tighter. So let's do the same thing on each side, and then I'll pull it into place. All right, so now it's very tightly on there. Maybe a tornadic weather, if you're near the coast, a hurricane wind would blow it apart. But what we're trying to do is just keep most of the rain that might come through over the summer months out of the bucket, because we want to add a specific amount of water to this bucket to make everything work properly. Now, I did a lot of research and reading 2 years ago when I was learning as much as I could about mosquitoes. And one of the things that mosquitoes are attracted to is blue light. And so I bought this right here. And it's not going to work unless I cover up the daylight sensor. But if you can see that, this is a dusk to dawn, solar powered, battery operated device here. And generally what you can do is you just set it on top, and there's different modes because it's like a Christmas light. We want to just have it can be like that on all the time. I'll cut the light off in here in just a second and show you. But blue light will attract mosquitoes and other biting insects, gnats, and things like that. So we want to draw them right to the bucket. So as I said, there is a solar panel that comes with this. It's not expensive. I'll put a link in the description if you decide to do this. But like I said, this is an optional item that will help boost the system. So basically, you're just going to set this on top of the bucket. It is waterproof, or you can mount it. There's a little mounting stake here. You can mount the solar panel and have it direction, whatever you want. But you don't want to put this inside the bucket. You just want it sitting on the top, that the most amount of mosquitoes can see it from a far away distance. And let me cut the light off in here so you can see this a little bit better. But this does put out quite a bit of light, and it is LED, so it will burn for quite a few hours into the night, drawing in mosquitoes to it. So once dusk comes and you are seeing mosquitoes coming out, this is going to come on right as the sun is setting. It'll stay on for many, many hours until the battery wears itself down, and it could go way past midnight. So the optimum time really is dusk and dawn. And so this will attract them right as the sun is setting and draw them right to your system here, your mosquito trap, and it will work perfectly. And then in the morning, once the sun comes back, it will start recharging itself for the next day. And this one right here I've had for 2 years, and it's still working great. So the battery in this is really good quality. I'll put a link in the description if you want to do this optional step that will boost the system even more. Now, the heart of this system is this right here, and you probably might have seen one if you do keep an aquarium in your home, but this is basically a fish feeder. And so it works. You can do it every day, every other day. You can set it hours. Has a lot of different options here, but what I would recommend is setting your system to do this process, and I'll explain it in 1 second, to go once every other day. It's going to release what's in each one of these little cartridges right here into our water. So what are we doing here? And I'll try to make it as basic as possible. We're mimicking the same thing that happens with the mosquito magnet. We're creating what we expel out, carbon dioxide, and that's what draws in mosquitoes. The light draws in mosquitoes, and this draws in mosquitoes. So let's take a look a little bit closer at what we're going to do here. Now, this fish feeder idea just kind of came to me. I was trying to think, because when you mix yeast and sugar and put it into warm water, it's going to release a carbon dioxide, but that only takes place over a period of maybe 1 to 2 days, and then it kind of fizzles out. So what we want to do is keep replenishing our bucket of lukewarm water with this exact mixture. I'm doing about half a teaspoon of just dry yeast and dry sugar. Now, the process that takes place of the yeast being activated will not start working until it comes in contact with the water. I made sure that I researched that mixing the yeast and the water, that it won't start the process while it's still in each one of these chambers. Now, as this moves around, there's a little door on the bottom, and it drops that day or every other day's bait, or what we're using as bait for our mosquitoes, into the water. So basically it's just every other day this process is taking place. You could set it and do this for 1 month, and you're constantly catching mosquitoes. Now what is the purpose once they go in the bucket? I'll explain that in just a second. So I just wanted you to understand that this is an automated system that you don't have to keep checking every day. Once you put it together, basically you just kind of just let it go for an entire month. You can recharge the battery, or depending on the one that you buy, you could put new batteries in it. Some of these are controlled by external batteries. You could do that, or some of them actually, I think I actually saw one with a solar panel. So remember, we're doing this, we're setting it for about every other day, not every day what you would normally do on a fish feeding regimen. You're wanting it to do every other day. So we're gonna mix this and this, the active dry yeast and the cane sugar. Now it needs to be dry yeast because the way this works, this slowly turns and it's just dropping the food into our water, or the bait into our water, every day. Now I'm just going to mix a partial batch and just maybe do 2 or 3 of our sugars. And then we're going to do our yeast. And so we don't have to worry about the yeast being activated, as I said, until it comes in contact with the water. This is just a normal dry yeast. You can get it at most grocery stores. I'm going to do that together right there. And then I'm going to mix them very carefully, because we want a very good mix here. We don't want it to be too much yeast or too much sugar in each one of the chambers. So we're just going to do that, mix it well, and then we will carefully add it. I'm going to have to get my funnel to do this to make sure I don't make a huge mess, because I have some very tiny kitchen funnels. But once you see it's perfectly mixed, you don't see yeast and you don't see sugar, it just looks like it's mixed together. Just take a small kitchen funnel and fill each one of these. And remember, you need to read your directions on whatever brand you have of fish feeder, and make sure you're not doing this every day. I'd recommend every other day to allow the yeast to do that process and draw the mosquitoes in. Now, once the mosquitoes goes into our trap, what happens then? What prevents them from laying eggs and escaping out? I'll tell you that in just a sec. I'm going to add about 1/4 of a bucket to the bottom. And so we want to make sure the water does not have chlorine in it. It needs to be just very pure water. You can buy that either spring water. I wouldn't even recommend running through a filter, because we don't want to take any chances on our yeast being harmed by chlorination or fluoride. So we're going to do that about 1/4 of the way. You can do half a bucket if you wanted to, but I just generally do about smaller amount there. Now, what are we going to do once we install our fish feeder? Well, there's a couple of tricks to make sure your fish feeder doesn't malfunction. I'll tell you that in just a second. I would not recommend using any kind of strong soap like this. I would, at the very least, use a baby shampoo, and that may not even be good for the yeast. We want to make sure we use a very small amount. We're talking maybe 1 teaspoon to half a teaspoon, but I would recommend using Castile soap. If you don't have any at your local grocery store, I'll put a link in the description. We're putting the Castile soap in, and we're breaking the surface tension. So when the mosquitoes come in, they're attracted by the carbon dioxide release, the light on top. So it's just like a mosquito magnet at a fraction of the cost. And the mosquito magnet, you can look those up online, anywhere from $500 to $1,000. When they first came out, there were actually over 1,000. So I never even considered purchasing one. So when we do that, we add our soap to the surface top of the water, it's going to break that surface tension. So when the mosquito goes in, it lands on the water. It's attracted initially by the carbon dioxide release or the light, whichever one that brings them in there. They go in to lay their eggs. They see the water. Mosquitoes can sense water very well. And so they go in to lay their eggs, and they break the surface tension, and you'll see dead mosquitoes floating all in your water. So the only change you might have to make is if you have a massive mosquito population around your yard, is changing out the water, because the top surface of the water could be totally covered with mosquitoes in a very short amount of time. Now let me show you how to install the actual device on the side, and a tip to make sure that it doesn't malfunction. Now that you've completely filled your feeding device, you want to make sure that the door that's going to open and close is to the inside. So make sure you don't make that mistake that I made once. Wasn't paying close attention. And there's a little device that tightens up on the side that holds it in place so it doesn't fall off. but there's always the chance that moisture could get in here. So I would recommend covering this with aluminum foil completely around the top, the sides, of course, not the bottom where you're going to release your yeast and sugar into the water. So just make sure you don't do that. Now there's another thing that we can do here if you don't want to use this method that works just as well, and I'll talk about that in a second. So this is the basic setup of the system number 1, and I'll show you 2 and 3 here in just a second. But this is the system. Make sure you remember that little trick about covering this, because we want to keep all the moisture possible away from the yeast and the sugar. So you might just remove the top and check it from time to time and make sure it hadn't activated by some accidental water getting inside of it. It's pretty watertight. It says it's moisture proof, so humidity shouldn't be an issue either. The door opens and closes on the back, so you don't have to worry about that as well. So just remember, you want this somewhere in your yard away from where people are so you can draw the mosquitoes away from you. Another thing you want to remember is that just setting this on top is going to put out the blue light that will draw mosquitoes and other insects in. So not only will you be catching mosquitoes, you can catch gnats and other types of pesky mosquitoes around your property as well. Okay, so that's the soap trap. Basically, the mosquitoes go in, they break the surface tension of the water because of the soap being right at the surface. They drown and you've killed off thousands of mosquitoes in a very short amount of time. But what if you want to crush the population? You want to have the population of your mosquitoes drop even better? Use something like these mosquito bits. They recommend putting these in ponds and lakes and things like that. But these bits kind of looks like a little bit of fish food in themselves, and it'll fit easily into that. You put them in there, so this would be method number 2. The mosquitoes go in, they lay their larvae. The bacteria that's in here kills the larvae, and you drop the population way down. Method number 3 would to do a mix of your mosquito bits, your other 2 items, into the feeder. Just do equal parts of all 3, and it's dropping in there every other day, and it's killing them in 2 different ways. So you don't even have to worry so much about the population. In a short amount of time, you're going to see a drastic reduction of mosquitoes in your area by mixing and matching. I would recommend making 6 to 8 of these buckets if you have a large piece of property. And remember, don't put it right where most people are going to be. If you have a swimming pool or a porch area, put it away so you can draw the mosquitoes away from where you're going to be at most of the time, because this is slowly releasing carbon dioxide. You have the blue light on, so it acts as just a miniature mosquito magnet that costs a fraction of the professional one. So guys, at different locations, you can get these buckets for absolutely free. There's a few other things in here you may have to pay for. You could use something as simple as a stick in the yard, tape it in place, or put a screw through, either way through the top. So the cost of this is really low. This little device right here, our fish feeder, was around $20. And this, again, as I said, is an optional item, but it was around Christmas time when I purchased it. But it kind of came to me that blue light may be the best. I researched it, and it did say indeed that mosquitoes are attracted to blue light. So I did that last year. I saw my mosquito populations drop to what I think was very close to 0. So guys, if you have any questions, I hope you'll become a subscriber first. If you want to help the channel even more, I have a Patreon link down below. You can see a lot of things there. I have PDFs on many videos, not all of them, but there's PDFs attached to a lot of the videos so you can download if you're looking for any recipe from any of the garden recipes. Guys, I really appreciate it, and have a great day.